The night grew quiet again, the city settling into its usual rhythm. Keanu put his helmet back on, swung the leg over his motorcycle, and started the engine. As he rode off, he couldn't stop thinking about Rachel and Lily, about the strength it took for her to keep going despite everything she had faced. He knew their journey wasn't over, but he also knew they had taken a step forward, a step toward something better. And in a world that could often feel cold and unforgiving, that small glimmer of hope was everything. Sometimes Keanu thought it wasn't about changing the whole world. Sometimes it was about changing one person's world. And as he disappeared into the night, he felt a quiet sense of peace, knowing he had done just that. It was a busy morning in the heart of the city, where life never seemed to slow down. The streets were alive with honking cars, hurried footsteps, and the constant hum of conversation. Among the chaos, a man in his mid-30s stood quietly on the corner, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit. To the untrained eye, he was just another businessman, someone blending into the crowd. But there was something different about him. He held a white cane, the kind used by those who are visually impaired, and his dark sunglasses masked the sharpness of his gaze. This wasn't just any ordinary day for him, and he wasn't just another man on the street. His name was Daniel Carter, a wealthy entrepreneur known for his shrewd business instincts and an empire built from scratch. But today, Daniel wasn't interested in boardrooms or stock prices. Today, he had a plan to test the honesty of the people around him. For weeks, the idea had simmered in his mind. He had grown curious about human nature, about how people behaved when they thought no one was watching, or when they believed the person in front of them was vulnerable. So Daniel decided to go undercover. He would pretend to be blind, relying entirely on the kindness of strangers. Would people take advantage of him, or would their compassion shine through? It was an experiment as much as it was a test of his own faith in humanity. The first part of his plan was simple. He positioned himself near a busy coffee shop, holding a small tin cup in his hand. Occasionally, he would accidentally drop a $100 bill or appear to fumble with his wallet, leaving the contents within easy reach of passersby. His heart raced as he waited to see what would happen. The first person to approach was a young woman in her 20s. She had headphones in, her focus split between her phone and the path ahead. When she noticed the bill on the ground, she paused. Daniel could feel the tension in the air as she looked from the money to him and back again. Would she pick it up and return it, or would she pocket it, assuming a blind man would never notice? Before Daniel could fully process the moment, an older man stepped in, his movements quick and purposeful. He picked up the bill and handed it directly to Daniel, his voice calm yet firm. "You dropped this," he said, patting Daniel lightly on the shoulder. The young woman hesitated for a moment, then gave a small smile and walked away. This interaction left Daniel with mixed feelings. Was the older man genuinely kind, or had he acted only because someone else was watching? And what about the young woman? Did she hesitate because she had been caught, or because she wasn't sure what to do? The day went on, and Daniel encountered all sorts of people. Some returned the money immediately, their faces full of genuine concern. Others walked right past, pretending not to notice. And then there were those who picked up the bill, glanced around, and quickly stuffed it into their pockets. Each reaction chipped away at Daniel's assumptions about human nature, leaving him both hopeful and disillusioned. But as the sun began to set, something happened that Daniel never could have predicted. A group of teenagers approached him, their laughter echoing down the street. One of them stopped in front of him, her tone laced with mockery as she said, "Hey, you need help with that money." Daniel felt a knot tighten in his stomach. What were they planning? Before he could respond, one of the teens did something that made Daniel question everything he thought he knew about people. One of the teenagers, a boy who couldn't have been older than 16, suddenly reached down and picked up the $100 bill Daniel had dropped. For a moment, it felt like time froze. Daniel kept his face blank, his grip tightening on the cane. The boy's friends snickered in the background, their laughter low and unsettling. "Thanks for the cash, mister," the boy said, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he waved the bill in front of Daniel. Daniel's heart pounded, but he stayed in character. "Excuse me?" he asked, his voice calm but deliberately uncertain, as if trying to make sense of the situation. "You heard me," the boy replied, stepping closer. "You dropped it, so I'm keeping it." Daniel could feel the tension building. The other teens egged him on, encouraging him to walk away with the money. But then something unexpected happened. A girl from the group, slightly shorter than the rest, and wearing an oversized hoodie, stepped forward. She grabbed the boy's arm and hissed, "Stop it, James. This isn't funny." The boy rolled his eyes and shook her off. "Relax, it's not like he'll know," James said with a smirk. The girl looked over at Daniel, her expression softening. "Sir, I'm really sorry about this," she said, her voice almost trembling. "Here, let me help." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled bill, not $100, but a $10 note, and slipped it into Daniel's tin cup. Daniel was stunned. She wasn't the one who had taken the money, but she felt responsible enough to try to make things right. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. The group eventually moved on, their laughter fading into the distance, but the moment lingered in Daniel's mind. That girl's small act of kindness stood out against the backdrop of her friend's behavior, and it gave him a glimmer of hope in an otherwise disheartening day. As night fell, Daniel packed up his belongings and returned to the luxury penthouse he called home. The contrast between the streets and his personal life couldn't have been more stark. He sank into his leather armchair, replaying the day's events in his mind. Each encounter had been a glimpse into the complexity of human nature. Some people were honest without hesitation, others seemed indifferent, and a few were outright opportunistic. But what struck him most were the moments of unexpected kindness, like the girl from the group or the older man who had returned his money earlier. It made him wonder what shaped these choices. Was it upbringing, circumstances, or something deeper? He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to learn, more to uncover. The next day, Daniel decided to up the stakes. He swapped the bustling city streets for a quieter suburban neighborhood. Here, he tried a different approach. Instead of dropping money, he pretended to struggle with directions, holding a map and asking strangers for help. It didn't take long before a middle-aged woman with a kind smile stopped to assist him. She took the time to explain where he needed to go, even walking a block with him to ensure he was on the right path. Her generosity caught Daniel off guard, and as she walked away, he couldn't help but wonder if people in less hurried environments were naturally more empathetic, or if he had just been lucky. But not every interaction went as smoothly. A man in his early 40s, dressed in a crisp suit, walked past Daniel without even acknowledging him. Moments later, Daniel heard the man chuckle into his phone, saying, "Some people will do anything for attention these days." The comment stung, not because it was aimed at him, but because it revealed a dismissiveness that Daniel hadn't expected. It was a harsh reminder that not everyone would see vulnerability as an opportunity to help. Some would see it as a nuisance or, worse, a weakness. As the days went on, Daniel expanded his experiment, venturing into different parts of the city and even visiting a nearby park where families gathered. Each setting brought new challenges and surprises, from children pointing out the blind man to their parents, to an older woman who sat with Daniel and talked to him for nearly half an hour. She shared stories about her own life, her struggles, and how she believed kindness was a choice people had to make every day. Her words stayed with Daniel long after she left. They added another layer to his understanding of the world around him. This wasn't just about testing honesty anymore. It was about seeing the subtle ways people revealed who they truly were, even in fleeting moments. But Daniel wasn't prepared for what happened next. As he stood near a bus stop one afternoon, still pretending to be blind, he overheard a conversation between two men. One of them mentioned seeing a video on social media of a blind man being scammed. The man laughed, saying, "People will fall for anything these days." Daniel's stomach dropped. Could it be possible that someone had recorded one of his interactions and posted it online? Had his experiment been exposed? He tried to stay calm, but the thought of being found out sent a wave of anxiety through him. That evening, as he scrolled through his phone in the privacy of his apartment, he found a video circulating online. It was blurry and poorly shot, but there was no mistaking it. It was him, standing on the street, fumbling with his wallet. The caption read, "Rich blind guy gets scammed. Watch what happens next." The video had already racked up thousands of views, and the comments were a mix of outrage, pity, and skepticism. Some people praised the kindness of those who helped him, while others accused him of faking his blindness for attention. Daniel realized that his experiment was spiraling out of his control, and the lines between observer and participant were beginning to blur. He had started this journey to understand honesty, but now he was the one under scrutiny. As the days went on, the tension built. More videos surfaced, and Daniel found himself at the center of an online debate. Some praised his courage, while others questioned his motives. And amidst it all, he had to grapple with a difficult question. Was he testing others, or was he testing himself? With every passing moment, the stakes grew higher, and Daniel knew that the climax of this journey was fast approaching. But what he didn't know was just how much his experiment would change not only his view of the world, but also the way others saw him. As the video of Daniel's social experiment continued to gain traction online, his once private test of human honesty became a public phenomenon. The comment section of every post became a battlefield of opinions. Some people argued that his actions were inspiring, a necessary reminder of the importance of kindness and integrity. Others accused him of manipulating emotions, calling his experiment deceitful. Daniel hadn't anticipated this level of attention, and for the first time, he felt the weight of the scrutiny. He questioned whether he had done the right thing by testing people in such a way. What had started as a simple idea had spiraled into something far bigger, and he wasn't sure how to handle it. Determined to take control of the situation, Daniel decided to reveal the truth. He reached out to a trusted journalist, someone known for their balanced reporting, and invited them to his home. Together, they planned an exclusive interview in which Daniel could explain his intentions and share his perspective. When the interview aired, Daniel opened up about his reasons for conducting the experiment. He spoke about his curiosity regarding human behavior, his desire to understand how people treat someone they perceive as vulnerable, and the profound moments of kindness he had witnessed along the way. He acknowledged the controversy and admitted that he hadn't fully considered how his actions might affect others, especially those who were caught on camera without their consent. The response to the interview was immediate and mixed. Some people appreciated his honesty and the lessons he had learned, while others remained critical, accusing him of using his wealth and privilege to toy with people's emotions. But what mattered most to Daniel were the quieter voices, the ones who reached out to share their own stories of kindness, honesty, and the struggles they faced in their daily lives. One email in particular stood out to him. It was from the girl in the hoodie, the one who had given him her own money when her friend refused to return his. She wrote about how that moment had stayed with her, how it made her realize the power of standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. She thanked Daniel for the lesson, even if she hadn't fully understood his intentions at the time. Daniel smiled as he read her message. It was a reminder that for all the noise and controversy, there were still meaningful connections and moments of understanding that came from his experiment. In the days that followed, Daniel decided to take his lessons to heart. He made a substantial donation to several organizations that supported the visually impaired and other vulnerable communities, ensuring that his actions could lead to tangible, positive change. He also took time to reflect on his own behavior, vowing to approach the world with more empathy and humility moving forward. As the online buzz around his experiment began to fade, Daniel returned to his life, forever changed by what he had experienced. He had set out to test the honesty of others, but in the end, he had uncovered truths about himself. He had seen the best and worst of human nature, but more importantly, he had learned that even in a world filled with doubt, there was still room for hope, compassion, and connection. And so Daniel closed this chapter of his life, not with a sense of finality, but with a renewed belief in the complexity and beauty of humanity. His story wasn't about proving a point or drawing conclusions. It was about the journey, the questions, and the moments that made him stop and think. As the camera pans away, leaving Daniel standing by the window of his penthouse, gazing at the city lights, one thing is clear. The experiment may have ended, but the lessons would stay with him and his audience forever.